right. Good morning, Dan. Got another podcast.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Little hiatus, a little vacation down in Texas, but I always look forward to these ones with you, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. So today we dive deep into the wolf reintroduction into Colorado, predator control, management, and just our thoughts on it, and making sure that we're informed and that we also that we're educated and also we take part in it, and so I think this is a really important conversation to have, as me and you both have experience around predators, the management, and heck, we reintroduce wolves like right into our home states here, so definitely have firsthand experience.
Yeah, we are big game hunters. We live under the Western hunting and conservation model, and that includes management of all big game species. And yeah, this is something that we're passionate about. We love hunting and we value our natural resource, and so hopefully people can hear our passion for management and some of the things that we believe in, and ultimately that uh, dropping wolves into Colorado is a direct assault on your ability to gather meat for your family.
Mhm.
If you like to provide for your family, this is going to affect you. So this is kind of overtook the podcast today, but it was a good one. It's something that needed to be talked about, and I think it went well.
Yeah, I do too. And I think it's important that we keep united, educated, and we take this fight to the front lines and we protect what we love so much. So yeah, it's a lot of what this podcast is, but of course there's always tips and tactics mixed in there as well. So yeah, no, a great podcast. Just want to thank our sponsors for today's show. So I want to thank Juniper Mountain Coffee. Just great coffee. I got some more bags, the different roast that showed up, and so I'm really enjoying it. So the Trail Boss is one of my favorites. I really like that roast. But yeah, they just do a great job. Small company, supports hunters, and great coffee. So thanks to those guys for their support.
Yep, great product. My wife loves the Camp Cook as well, like that coffee. She's a definitely a coffee fiend. I'm kind of the type that I'll drink whatever. I appreciate a good coffee roast, for sure. But yeah, Eva loves the Camp Cook as well. So that, yeah, they have some great options out there, and they're Western hunters like us. So yeah, support them. Support these small companies, and yeah, we appreciate it. Of course, here at Eastmans, we appreciate it. And Evolution Broadheads, that's another one of our sponsors. This is a product that we're lucky enough to be able to shoot their broadheads, but we believe in those broadheads, and the sponsorship kind of fell into place. So check out Evolution Broadheads, the Jekyll and the Hyde. If you've listened to this podcast, you've heard us talk about broadheads a lot and how much we believe in these heads. So check them out. Once again, another small company, a premium product. It's a small show that they have running there, but that's what you get with a small company. You get great customer service. You get great uh, just overall service and overall product uh, altogether. So it's
Yep.
a win-win, and they just flat out perform.
Oh, they do. I used them all year on all my species. Used them on elk, like you recommended. Used the Jekylls, the hybrid, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
No,
I
the
used.
Jekyll's the fixed. It's the fixed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, the hide. The
Yeah.
hide is so it's a hybrid between a fixed and expandable. It's got a blade that's sharpened both ways on the front. So if you get that arrow in and it has to work its way out, it's cutting the whole time, and so it's got that front fixed blade, and then it's got the expandable that opens really large and does a bunch of damage. So yeah, I used them all season. They were just great heads. Used them on my elk. I've actually transitioned my buddies into using these heads as well. So everybody that saw these heads perform are like, hey, what are you using there? Hey, how's that work for you? And so I've actually transitioned a lot of my buddies into shooting those heads as well. So yeah, just a great head, great company. So thanks to Evolution as well.
Yep. And check out all our other things that we have going on here at Eastman's, the Eastman's online mule deer course, of course, the magazine, and Beyond the Grid. We talked about a little bit of Brian's episode of his mountain goat hunt in British Columbia in this podcast, and another one that we have coming up. Great timing with talking about predator management, but we got my mountain lion hunt coming up here in January from last year as probably the final release for this season of Beyond the Grid. So always some awesome productions coming your guys' way. We love doing this stuff, and that's one thing that I'm truly passionate about is sharing these stories of Western hunting and our adventures, whether it takes you to British Columbia for mountain goats or down in Mexico for mule deer and everything in between. So check out Beyond the Grid. What else am I missing, Brian?
Oh man, you covered it really well, but yeah, those Beyond the Grids are awesome. I really enjoy watching. Like, I really enjoyed Todd's episode for rutting mule deer last year. That tag he drew that you filmed for him, man, that was a great episode as well. And then, of course, your two biggest bulls to date came out this season, which are just awesome episodes. So yeah, really cool. Check those out. Dan mentioned the magazines, the mule deer course. We have Eastman's TagHub. So right now, Dan and I are diving into application season and figuring out which states, which units we're going to apply for. And TagHub is just full of great information, like so many analytics and statistics about harvest data, about doe to buck ratios, about just overall populations, the rifle seasons, the bow seasons, the opportunities out there. So it's just an awesome resource. So yeah, get on board with that. TagHub 2.0. We've got our other podcasts. Eastman's Elevate is the other one that I run. And then we also have Eastman's Hunting Journal. Ike runs that one. So yeah, some good podcasts, some good listening content to listen into there. And man, that's about it, Dan. I think we covered it.
Heck yeah. No, it's a good plethora of stuff, and you guys keep listening. We appreciate your support. We'll keep making them. We love this. I always enjoy these conversations, and man, should we hop into another one? What episode is this? 21?
We're episode 21. So yeah, good work, Dan. I enjoy these thoroughly as well. So yeah, let's get into it.
All right.
You're just getting back from vacay. It looked like fun in the sun down there in Texas, huh?
Yeah. Not too much sun, but it was good hunting. We had a lot of rain, but it was good for hunting. A lot of people don't like hunting in the rain or think it's time to stay inside or whatever. But man, I've killed some of my best animals in the rain, so I was actually excited to be out there. And movement was good. Peak of the rut, dude. The rattling down there for whitetails, like on the ground, was incredible.
Really?
Yeah, we went out basically in the mornings for 2 hours, in the evenings for 2 hours with Quattro, with the owner, and we rattled in 3 bucks every time we went out.
Mm.
And down there, we're being selective. It's just not shooting any buck that comes in, but it was a blast. It was just so fun to be down there and watch these bucks react and come in, and they're all a little bit different. The mature bucks, they can be a little bit more sneaky when they come in, but once again, you're just catching them on the day that they're in that mood, whether they're curious, whether they're aggressive, whether they're looking to breed. Maybe they know they're not the dominant buck in the area, so they sneak in. So there's all these different ways that these bucks come to horns, and so it's fascinating, and it's really fun to watch.
It's super cool. You think they're more reactive to it due to like high buck numbers or something? Or is that just the way Texas is? They just love to come in, do a rattle.
Yeah, I mean, you hear over the years that you got to get down to Texas. They come to the horns so good, and they do. And I think deer come to horns anywhere. But yeah, I think ultimately it's numbers. It's the numbers thing. And from what I saw down there, it was 1-to-1 for buck to doe ratio.
Wow.
And Quattro insisted that that was not the case. There's still a lot more does out there. It's just thick country, so you don't see them. But he said, yeah, wait till the late season after the rut and all the feed is gone, and the deer congregate to a food source like a feeder or a field or something, and the does really come out of the woodwork. But I think just buck numbers are really high, and so competition is high, and dominant bucks have to work a little bit extra hard to fend off all these other bucks competing. So aggressive behavior and a lot of rut activity, which is, that sets up for great hunting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw your wife got one down there. Were you able to arrow one down there? You get any chances?
Yeah, so it was kind of, the wife's trip. She shot an odd she shot a whitetail. We hunted a couple days. She shot her whitetail with a rifle, and then we had a morning and an evening for me. And so we went out, we rattled on the ground. Eva, she shot her buck just rifle hunting. We were actually driving from one stand location to check another basin, and we saw these bucks facing off on the ridge. And I was like, "Holy smokes! Look at that buck on the left!" And so she got out and shot it with the rifle. But yeah, I did get a hunt, and man, I missed a great buck. And it's just it makes me laugh at this point, like how it all happened. But I let my guard down. I was sitting there texting the babysitter because she was texting us about Dean and how he was doing. And I didn't, out of all the times that, I set up to rattle, it's either going to be like close shooting, top pin shooting, or sometimes you might have an outlier or a farther shot. And I would say 85% of my shooting lanes, it was all going to be close. But how this buck came in, and he came right into Quattro. I was about 30 yards from Quattro. Quattro's rattling. And this buck, I just saw a glimpse to my left, and he was just a dead run in, just coming in hot. And he ran right up to Quattro, and he had a cedar tree on the other side of him. But that buck was going to bust at any second. And sometimes those bucks, they come in and they leave just as fast as they come in because they bust you, they wind you, whatever. So this buck comes running in. I drew back just on the glimpse of him coming in. And so I draw back and I look, and I was like, "Holy smokes, that's a giant." And he stopped, and I guessed him for 45 and shot right over his back. And he was 38, I think. And, I'm sitting there shaking my head. I'm like, of all the scenarios that a big buck, a big mature buck could come into shooting range, and it was not within that 30-yard realm, and I had to guess because I didn't range all these little possibilities beforehand because I was distracted. And we talk about this all the time with bow hunting. Distractions in the field can lead to errors, and that's exactly what happened. And it's my own rule that I broke, and like I said, it's frustrating, but you got to shake your head. And it's like you have to cover your bases at all times because you just don't know. That buck could come in, that 10% chance to the shooting. There's one little spot that he could come in that I could, get a shot off, and it's beyond 30 yards. It just makes you laugh in the end.
Mm-hmm. That's it's good. That's about all you can do is laugh at it. But I like how you learn from it too. It's like how you really assess the situation honestly. Like, man, I should have been ranging that. I was distracted, instead of like, well, I had to guess at the range, that's why I missed him. And that is the truth. Like both of those things are true. And most of the time when I have to guess at range, like I do not do good at guessing at range, but you do really well. You've got a fast bow, and you're pretty good at judging those ranges, and usually you make it happen. But yeah, more times than not, I will miss a shot that I have to estimate yardage, especially. It's one thing to estimate yardage 30 and in like you're talking. It's another thing to try to estimate range from 30 to 60. You just don't have the range forgiveness, And my bull this year, I was able to, like, I had a range at him at 50 and took a few steps and able to do some math and put it right through his heart, which is always a good thing. So that made me feel good that I was able to estimate at least a little bit and make it happen there. But yeah, that's just how it goes. It's just bow hunting. We all collect those misses over the years.
Yeah, and it's like you're saying, it's so difficult to accurately guess ranges. And in this situation, I was judging over like open space, so like a canyon, so you're kind of like across the draw, and that's even harder, right? When you're just open air that you're judging across. And then on top of it, these deer down there, like a big buck is 100 pounds. they're small deer. And that was one of the biggest things when I walked up to Eva's buck. Proportionally, it's a nice deer. It was a 5x4, and his frame looked good for his body size, had a big neck. But you walk up to him and you're like, holy smokes, this is a tiny deer. And it's just South Texas, or it's West Texas. It's not South Texas in the Golden Triangle or anything, but yeah, it's West Texas. These deer do not have big bodies, so they look farther out there than what they really are because their bodies are small. And so between that and judging across like that little canyon, that open air, it's difficult. It's just difficult. And these are the little things that I think of because, if I set up and I'm flat on the ground and I have, I practice this, I have a tree out there, I'm like, yeah, that's 30. And if you're like judging down lanes of trees or, in tight cover, it's actually, things are a lot closer than what they look like. Like 30 yards is a long ways in tight cover when it comes down to it. And so, yeah, these are the things I process all the time. And man, yeah, judging across this open air across the draw, it is difficult. And so, yeah, I practice it all the time because it's so important in the game that we play with, having to make a fast decision. And then, I'll guess, and then I range and I practice. And it's just one of those things. It's so difficult.
Well, that's why you're good at it, as you practice it, where I really rely heavy on my range finding skill, to be able to make shots is like how I go about it. But yeah, that if I have to judge more times than not, it's not going to go my way or whatever. So I'm always the guy that tries to get the exact range. But I know what you're saying. Like you get a lot of those close, quick encounters, and also funny about the deer size. Like you say that, it makes a difference on judging mule deer. You're talking whitetails, but mule deer, like the body sizes in between these deer can be so different, and so not only on quick shots or body size that way, but on field judging, I notice it on mule deer. Like if I'm looking at a giant Colorado or Wyoming buck, I might underjudge that deer and get some ground growage when I go up. Like one of the best mule deer that I kill, a Wyoming buck, my best Wyoming buck, is a 190-inch deer, just heavy horns and big mass. I actually passed that deer 2 days before thinking he was 170-inch, which 170-inch is a great deer. It was just a really good year in Wyoming, a really good tag. And I knew there was some really good bucks around, but I got down to towards the last day and I saw that 170-inch deer, and I made a stalk and a play all the way around, made a perfect shot, and he kind of disappeared down in the timber, and it was right at kind of last light. So it left him, and my buddy Dan had watched the whole thing through the spotting scope. And then the next morning we go to recover that deer. And oh my God, so much mass and stickers, but he has like this huge donkey head. His ear to ear spread is 27 inches, which normally they're like 22, and he just had this 300-pound mule deer body. And I had underjudged that deer so bad. It was like one of my best hardhorn deer when I walked up to him, but just on the body size of some of these mountain deer can be way different than a prairie deer, way different. Like one of my biggest bucks in Utah is a 150-pound deer with a giant 211 rack, which is crazy. But yeah, body size on that mule deer can sure change, like region specific, where you're at, and can make a big difference in field judging those things.
Yeah, no, I use the same thing for elk, and like you said, just geographically things can vary, and especially for elk in a big herd, maybe you have a few satellite bulls and cows, and if a bull's body really stands out, that he's probably going to be bigger than what you put a number on him. And so I definitely factor that in. It reminds me of a story. Actually, Mike Eastman was telling me he was down there at Bobby Hill's ranch one year with one of the hunt winners, and they had eyes on this great looking bull. He's a 350 bull, just great character, an older bull. And they had a hunter shoot this bull, and they walked up to it, and the thing was a dwarf. It was this little tiny body, but this bull was always by himself, so they didn't have anything else to compare it to, and it ended up being like a 320 bull because it was like a dwarf bull, like this tiny body. And it's kind of down in the low country, but that just goes to show you. And those are to get fooled by body size is fairly rare. I would say whether it's big or little, it's great when they're bigger than what you think they are, but a dwarf elk, I don't think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, that's new to me too. Yeah, I hunt some units where the deer have such big bodies. Like this last late season hunt that I did, every deer in there surprises me, and in a good way. They just have big mountain bodies, and their antlers are so heavy, and like every deer that I walk up on there, whether it's mine or one of my buddies, always just surprises me to the better. And so I've started to know that about that unit when I'm judging those deer, that they have quite a bit more mass and they're quite a bit bigger than they appear, especially when you go from hunting like a prairie mule deer to some of these mountain mule deer. But yeah, it is something you have to factor in when you're looking at these things. And especially we use the mule deer's ear, as an 8-inch length measurement. And then also the tip to tip spread is so huge when you're judging mule deer. And I consider myself like really good and efficient at judging mule deer, but that body size and ear spread can sure throw me off, And so yeah, it's definitely something you have to factor in when you're field judging these things. But yeah, well, while you were gone, I went on my first mountain lion hunt. I have this buddy Aaron that runs some dogs, and man, it was pretty cool. I've never been on one. Like, it's not about the bow hunting or the spot and stalk or even the shot for that matter. It's like about these houndsmen and their relationship with the dogs. And then, man, these guys just grind. I mean, up in the middle of the night, driving gnarly, snowy roads, to try to cut tracks. And they're really good at tracking too. Like, I learned a lot about tracking and reading sign. But man, it was pretty fun. Have you ever done one of those hunts? Have you gone with Tyler Johnson or anything, Dan?
Yeah. I've actually done a fair amount of it over the years with a variety of different folks, and I've never killed a lion until last year. With them, we're being selective. You're just not shooting any lion that you treat. And we've treated some in the past, some females and whatnot, and have let them walk. But been on a lot of lion hunts with others. Guys shot a lion, been there for that, and just
Guy killed a huge one, right?
Yeah, he's killed a few. Like,
oh wow,
yeah, lions. The one down in Colorado a couple years ago was just a nice tom, and then he killed a big one in Montana several years ago that I wasn't on. But yeah, Tyler, another local, James, and Josh Martolio. It's a network. Like the houndsmen, it seems like everybody knows everybody in a general area, and then regionally, these guys are connected too because they're talking about dogs or dealing dogs, and it's definitely their own lifestyle. It's a niche that houndsmen are a part of, and it's definitely interesting. And most of the guys that I know, there's no like halfway in, like they're all in. It's their lifestyle. They love it. There's no like casually running cats on a Sunday if the weather's nice or whatever. There's none of that. It's all in or not. Is that kind of what you experienced too?
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, the two people I went with, yeah, they were all in for sure, like 100% when you said it. But yeah, they're like you say, it is their own network or their own niche. But it's like so important for predator control for like these mule deer populations. Those mountain lions, they're such efficient killers, and they just wreak havoc on those mule deer. So same thing, we treat a female that we pass, and I guess there's female quotas too. It's not like you can't kill a female to help the deer populations. But I just thought, wanting the full experience, and then you're kind of, you're playing by their rules too. And so, it's like, well, we'll see if we can find a tom later in the season or go. But I really learned a lot. And I think it's important that, we're not divisive as hunters, and that we support some of these other hunting methods, because really that's one of the only ways to control mountain lion populations, like spot and stalk. It's just you're not going to kill very many of them. And, and if they get out of balance, then they're definitely going to throw the ungulate populations out of balance. So I think it's a real important piece. And I was just so impressed, like how much these houndsmen care for their dogs, and then care for the mountain lions as well. That's what they love to chase, so they want to make sure that they have healthy mountain lion populations as well. But Yeah, and then just absolutely all in. It's a different kind of grind. Like you say, it's not about bow hunting skill at all.
Yeah.
Like you have to make one shot at 20 yards or 30 yards, and you do have to put a precise arrow into them for sure. But it's just more about their skill, and then about the chase. Like it gets pretty exciting when you do find a fresh track. You know, you've been putting all those miles and all those hours in the middle of the night, and find a track and release the dogs and be able to go on a chase, and then you just don't know what you're going to get into as far as a chase, like how many miles or how many hours. And then, you know, also they have to be really careful with wolves too, as those wolves will kill those hound dogs. And they have such this relationship with their dogs and so much time and effort into the bloodlines and the training that, you know, to lose a dog is just crush them, you know. And so they're having to be careful to make sure mountain lions are not in the place where they're hunting. So they're like driving loop roads and making sure there's no wolves coming into that loop where there's mountain lions coming into the loop. A lot to it, but yeah, man, it's definitely like a way to control predator populations, and those guys absolutely love it. And so, man, I'm glad they're able to do it. But it sounds like it's under threat in Colorado again. Did you see that
Yeah.
come up, Dan?
Yeah, no, I did. It's weird there with the general public and how predators are put up on a pedestal, and they're more important than anything else with the general public. Probably a lot of factors from that. You know, a couple generations of watching Disney movies is probably one of them, and just the glorifying, you know, the Nat Geo, you know, showing predators and you know how great they are. Once again, putting them up on pedestals, and so there's this mindset that we can't hunt them, we can't touch them. They're the hands off, and even hunters have argued. I've seen in the past too that like, well, you know, I support hunting deer and elk and ungulates, but you know, we don't need to hunt predators. I've seen that too, but man, it is frustrating because under the Western conservation model that essentially our management has been set up on in the United States and brought so many animals and species back from extinction under this model, and then we can't fully implement it. And predators, just like a deer or elk, are not one is more important than the other, in my opinion. They all need to be managed. They all need to be kept a close eye on, and not one is more special than the other. And the model doesn't work. You can't have hands off for predators and go full management on the prey, the ungulates. And that's why we see such these drastic population shifts and population reduction, like around the park. We can't hunt grizzly bear, or in core grizzly bear country habitat. We can't hunt them, and so you factor that in with the wolves that are in the country as well. In core grizzly bear area, there's plenty of wolves. You got mountain lions, you have black bears, and you have grizzly bears. And it's like no wonder there's no animals in these ecosystems to hunt because there's so many predators.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's a problem. And what has happened in Colorado, especially in the last few years, with them basically ballot biology, with introducing wolves into Colorado, because the general public has, you know, a hard on, for lack of better terms, for predators, and think that, you know, these predators are more important than elk. But let me tell you one thing. I've seen what wolves do in Yellowstone and how it changed the landscape for a negative. You know, a huge negative. And you'll get all these arguments out there that, you know, it's the circle of life. This is what you hear from the opposition. It's the circle of life. Once again, watch Lion King. That's what they claim. It's a circle of life, and you know, they have a right to be here too, and all these other things that, well, you know, before wolves were reintroduced, and they're pushing this stuff in schools too. And I'm kind of getting on a rabbit trail here, but this is the kind of the mindset that we're up against in schools. They're pushing this narrative that Nat Geo has also pushed, that, you know, they introduce wolves because there were too many elk in Yellowstone eating all the willows and causing all this erosion on the riverbanks, the stream banks. So there wasn't any willows. And because there wasn't any willows, there's not any beavers. And because there's not any beavers, there wasn't as many smaller predators. And because there wasn't as many smaller predators, there wasn't as many, or there was too many rodents and smaller, prey animals. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. That's a lie. And it was an agenda to get the general public on board with the reintroduction. And that's what they have to say to make it acceptable to the general public. But now, and this is firsthand experience, this isn't just me coming up with a theory or anything. Go to the Lamar Valley and look at what's happened. The bison population has tripled in the last 20 years because there's no elk that are grazing. I mean, there's no elk left. And in reality, since the bison population has tripled, go look on the park website, on the park statistics. That's a fact. Bison populations have tripled. Now the erosion is actually worse than it ever has been because bison are so much more hard on the landscape as far as erosion goes than elk ever were. Mm-hmm. And so it's all a fallacy. And so this is what we're dealing with and we're up against. And I think it's just going to continue with these people that, they want wolves and they want to outlaw mountain lion hunting. And man, after all this, it's like, it makes me wonder, like, as hunters, our voice means nothing. It means nothing. And the science behind it means nothing. I believe we're in big trouble.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, the first attack is always on predator hunting, but they're going to come for everything else next. And this is a means for them to get rid of hunting as well. Like I think it's a ploy by them, like a calculated move to be able to put predators on the landscape and then kill the ungulates. And then if you don't have anything to hunt, there's no hunting, and you're right. You can't let these biologists set these numbers of sustainable populations and harvests and let them manage the ungulates and let them manage the black bears and then go, oh, hands off on grizzlies and wolves. We want to grow those. And they've been moving the goalpost on us for years. Like, I live right outside the park. I mean, the most sought after elk tag in Montana used to be that late season Gardner hunt where you did a lot of guiding around there too. And man, there was an elk herd that would come out of the park that was over 20,000 animals and great bulls and great numbers and elk calves. Like, that's decimated. There is no more late season hunt there. They've taken that population to about 3% of what it once was, and same thing. You can look in a lot of these heavily timbered, like Western Montana, and you look into Idaho, like around Elk City, used to have 20,000 animals, where there's no elk left in that country, or not that many. And so, yeah, they've decimated populations just due to wolves and no control and the protection that they had for all those years. And now we're able to trap and hunt them and manage them a little bit in these states, which definitely helps. And some of these populations are bouncing back, but a lot of them we'll never see again. And so, yeah, it's ridiculous to have ballot biology. Like, I think that's a great term, is where you're letting the general public vote on what they think should happen in the state's biology. It doesn't make any sense. You have biologists for that, and all these populations have to be controlled. And just look at, like, California that outlawed mountain lion hunting, or Washington or Oregon, some of these places. And I'm not up on all the specifics of what they can and can't do, but I just know, like, after they outlawed, hound hunting for mountain lions, like, they've decimated the deer populations. And not only that, but now the taxpayers are having to pay government trappers to come in and shoot these lions when they get in developments and are killing people's dogs and cats. So we're paying out thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars to kill these mountain lions that we could have just controlled, with hunters and using that tool of management, like you say, that's worked so good for North America. So we are in trouble They've seen it in BC with those grizzly numbers up there where they outlawed grizzly bear hunting. And now they're having so many more human bear conflicts. Their populations of black bears are way down because the grizzlies are out competing for them. Like you can't just you can't do this ballot biology where you let the public, and there's so many people that live in these cities that are never even out in the woods and think, well, it'd be cool to have wolves around. And it's like, I don't hate wolves or anything. I just want to manage to decent numbers so we have this renewable resource of being able to hunt ungulates. And in Colorado, it is going to decimate Colorado. It's like we released them in Yellowstone National Park and they spread. At first they just wanted them in the park and they keep moving the goalposts and they just want this many animals. And then they just keep moving it to more animals and more protection. And now we want them in Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. We want them in all these places. And when Colorado wanted to reintroduce them, Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho said, we're not giving you any wolves. We know what this problem is and we're not giving them to you. And then Oregon went and gave them some wolves or whatever. But Colorado isn't as big as that Yellowstone ecosystem of Montana, Idaho, Wyoming. Like the overall area, like Colorado's a lot smaller. They're going to go in there and decimate those elk and deer herds in a hurry. So, I mean, I'm looking to hunt Colorado this year. But I don't know how good Colorado's hunting is going to keep. They had a great state and a lot of over-the-counter elk opportunities. Those are going to go away really quick. And I don't know, we've just got to continue to take the fight to them. It's like, educating our audience, Dan, I think is a good thing. And then, I'd mentioned that how.org. I love those guys for supporting all this predator hunting in all these different states. So, I'm definitely going to donate some more to HAL. And then I try to share everything that comes my way from them. And then also get involved on their website to send these letters to the people that know, because it does give us a bigger voice to be able to fight this on this front. Because boy, if they have their way, 20 years or so, we won't be hunting anymore.
Absolutely. And that's another, you brought up a good point with my disclaimer too. Like, I don't hate wolves. I don't, but they're not any more special than a coyote or a shrew or an elk or a deer. They need to be managed. And the opposition believes ultimately their goal, which you brought it up, is to end hunting. But it's weird to think, but the opposition doesn't believe that humans should have a say or an effect on wildlife. It should be 100% hands off. That's what they believe. And my response to that is, man has been a part of hunting and management of wildlife since the beginning of time. So to say something that couldn't be so far from the truth is astounding to me. It's mind-blowing that they come up with these ideas. And yeah, I don't hate wolves. I don't. But they need to be managed, and we know where this goes politically, and that's why I'm so against it, because we've seen the decimation in Gardner. We've seen it in Northwest Montana. And there's all these after effects, the rippling effects of wolves. And somebody might say, well, there were too many elk in Yellowstone. Like you said, there was 20,000 elk in that northern Yellowstone herd. I don't think there were. That's your opinion. There wasn't. They had this unbelievable migration that they came north out of the park up in the Gardner Valley to Dome Mountain, and they had this awesome cow elk hunt all winter. You got a weekend. You drew a Friday, Saturday, or a Sunday, Monday. That's how it worked. You had 2 days, and everybody got their elk. It was an incredible resource for the means for people to feed their families in our state. And that's exactly what this is. This reintroduction in Colorado is a direct assault on your ability to feed your family. That's what this is. So if you value eating meat, if you value harvesting wild meat, and you value feeding your family, this is something that you need to be a direct and vocal opponent of, because that's what this is. And some of the after effects that we've seen from the reintroduction of wolves in Yellowstone, are displacement of hunters. So everybody complains in Montana, there's too many hunters, yada, yada. But what happened was in these core areas, like the greater Rockies ecosystem and the Yellowstone ecosystem, I think it's a northern Rockies ecosystem, excuse me, and that's the
Correct.
Glacier
Yep.
National Park area. These core areas for these super predators, the grizzly bears and the wolves, have driven ungulate numbers, deer and elk numbers down so much that people go other places to hunt. And that's why everybody from Western Montana goes out east to hunt, because there's nothing left to hunt anymore in Region 1. Look at the numbers. Look at the check station. I think there was 3 elk brought through the check station this year. There's nothing left to hunt in Region 1 in Northwest Montana. So it causes all these other problems out east with all the hunters going east because there's nothing to hunt in Region 1 and 2. And we've touched on this before. And Ian Wargo has been a proponent of this. He lives in Kalispell, Montana. I grew up with him. I hunted with him this last year. But why isn't FWP facilitating something or putting in the work in Region 1 and 2 to improve wildlife habitat? And he brought up, for example, in the Bob Marshall Wilderness, in the South Fork and the Big Prairie, the hunting back there, that September 15th wilderness backcountry rifle season was put in place in the 80s. That was a depredation season that was put into place. Now, the numbers of elk that they're counting back there, it used to be several thousand that would winter back there. Now there's 300. That's on average what they count. So there's no elk left in the Bob, no real numbers to hunt. So why aren't we doing habitat improvement? Why aren't we upping the predator management in Region 1 and 2 for a goal to bolster those wildlife populations? Because we want hunters to come back over to the west side of the state, because once again, the west side of the state is where the vast majority of the public land in Montana is. It's the western third. That's where all the public is. And the eastern 2/3 is where you run into problems. And in Montana is 70% private, 30% public. So it causes a lot of problems. And I foresee this in Colorado too. They put these wolves down in Grand County, which is right next to Rocky Mountain National Park, of all places. Yeah, we saw that one coming. And it's one of the largest strongholds of elk populations in the lower 48 is that Rocky Mountain National Park. And they drop these wolves right in there. And so what this will do, this is just one of the after effects. This is going to displace a ton of hunters and give it a decade, right? It's going to take time. If you look at kind of progression of the wolves in the Yellowstone ecosystem, dropping them in there in 95 and what the numbers were doing by 2001 and then 2008, things were basically decimated in those core areas, just with the wolf population exploding. And so it's going to displace a ton of hunters. Opportunity goes down, tags numbers go down. We've seen the after effects. Moose, sheep, and goat in Montana, those tag numbers and those populations have declined in half every 10 years. Looking at the statistics, this is what I look at. Moose, sheep, and goat numbers have gone down by half every 10 years. And so it's a progression. If we're not actively managing these predators, it's all going to go away. It will. That's just the progression of what's going to happen. And in the meantime, it's going to displace a ton of hunters. And that's just going to make it even more difficult to obtain a tag. And so these are just some of the things that we're going to be looking at in the future of some of the unintended after effects. And don't even get me started with Echinococcus, the parasite that the wolves brought down when they brought them down from Canada. They dropped these wolves in, and now you have this parasite that is in our ungulate herd because of the wolves. And that might be a whole nother discussion, but man, it's frustrating. It really is. And once again, I am not an anti-predator person. I'm a pro-management person. And when you try to do hands off on a super predator species like a grizzly bear or a wolf, it's just disaster, and it's a trickle effect.
Oh, 100%. Those are really good points, Dan. Yeah, you've definitely done your research and looked into it, and you've formulated these intelligent opinions on the numbers and analytics you see, and also personal experience. And you are right, Montana, the displacing hunters. Like, man, you make such a great point. And I don't want to down our FWP, as a lot of times they have their hands behind their back and they do manage for opportunity. And so, they're trying to manage with biology and biologists that are setting numbers, and then they're trying to look at these numbers and make adjustments. And I hope they're trying to make the right adjustments. But the displacing hunters and guys going out east to hunt mule deer and things, like, man, out east is decimated. And there are no wolves out east. Like, it isn't a predator problem. It isn't a disease problem. I don't see dead deer laying everywhere. Like, it's a hunter problem. They were giving way too many doe tags, and then they just don't control how many hunters go in there. So in Montana, since COVID, we've grown by 300,000 people, 300,000 residents that can all get over-the-counter tags, and there are no game in western Montana, so they go out east. We have 16,000 non-residents that come to Montana to hunt. They don't tell them where they can hunt. It's just open general season in a lot of these places, and so a lot of these guys are going where there are game populations. But through that, we've had over harvest, I believe, in a lot of these areas where the hunting is just decimated. Like, I was with my daughter out there, and I went to go sign into a block management that's been good to me over the last 20 years or what. I can always find deer in there, and went to go sign in, and he pretty much laughed at me. He said, "It is not worth it." He said, "I've been out here for 3 months and I've seen 6 deer, 8 deer." He said, "It's the joke around the office that there's going to be all these angry hunters that come to Region 7 and don't see any deer." And that's exactly what we saw. And I hunted some of my spots out there and things, and there's nobody out there now because there's no deer. It's like the deer populations have been decimated just by hunters and mismanagement, or at least that's how I see it. And so I try to put my 2 cents into FWP. We're open to they're open to emails and suggestions of how they should manage, and so I'm trying to help those guys understand what's going on. But yeah, it's the joke around the office that there's no deer left in Region 7, and they just throw up their hands. And then you look at surrounding states that manage differently and control the numbers of harvest, and those states are thriving. There's mule deer in those states like crazy, and they're the same habitat. So it's obviously a mismanagement problem with Montana. So they're going to have to make some major adjustments. But yeah, man, we're in for it. Like, it's, a lot of times I've just put my head down and done my own deal, and I go on these hunts, but I'm really going to have to be more involved in putting my 2 cents out there, more informed, reading, making sure that I'm sending emails, making sure that I'm on the front lines of this to help protect what we love to do. Because they may come after the predator hunting first, but we're next. They'll come after bow hunting after that, or it is like, you hear that word, a slippery slope, but man, it sure is. They're never satisfied after they get one thing, or they get mountain lion hunting taken away. You can look at Washington; they got mountain lion hunting taken away, and then next was their spring bear season, and next, they're just going to keep walking right down the line and taking our opportunities, which, like you say, humans have been involved for a long time here in the States. And it's like a renewable resource where you can provide for your family the best nutrient dense protein on the planet. Like, that is so valuable. You talk about freedom, like to be able to be an average blue collar guy and be able to purchase a tag legally and go out and harvest a deer or harvest an elk and provide for your family through the winter with this great, nutritious, nutrient-dense protein. Man, that is amazing. That is freedom. And so, that's something that's worth the fight and worth my time and effort, and worth me keeping educated on and making sure I'm passing the word. But yeah, man, we're going to have to take the fight to the front lines, or like we'll lose it all. Like, they'll just slowly but surely take it away from us. So yeah, man, it's definitely discouraging, and I don't like to be a doom and gloom guy, but you can kind of see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, no, that's the writing's on the wall, and man, I'm not jealous of FWP. I mean, their job is so difficult.
Right.
dealing with CWD, dealing with all these hunters, dealing with management. Then you throw in the drought that we were experiencing, especially in the eastern part of the state in 20 and 21. I think they were a little slow in their reaction to alter tag numbers for 2022 and 2023, and we're kind of in the spot that we're in now. I still think that there's kind of an unspoken management tactic that we need to kill the numbers down to prevent spread of CWD that these states are doing. And I mean, it's a tough one because I don't think you're going to stop it one way or another. We're not going to have deer one way or another. And so do you let it just run its course, which it will. It's going to anyway. It's just like COVID. I mean, lockdowns aren't going to accomplish anything. A mask isn't going to accomplish anything. It's going to run its course. And so that's what is going to happen with CWD as well. And I don't know if you saw, they found a dead buck on the shores of Yellowstone Lake inside the park that was dead and tested positive for it. So I mean, if it's there, it's everywhere. You're not going to stop it. So yeah, I don't envy FWP. Their job is so difficult. And what do you do? I mean, I talk about bolstering habitat in region 1, and yeah, you can do that. But before we're going to see any real progress, we have to be able to hunt grizzly bears. And I will say, this is what they've done. One of the stipulations to get the grizzly bear delisted, for what this is worth, is they want that genetic connectivity from the Yellowstone ecosystem to the Northern Rockies ecosystem of grizzly bears. So they want grizzly bears to be able to travel from Glacier to Yellowstone and have that genetic diversity. And there's this 35-mile stretch by Helena, Montana, that is it's making it difficult. And so, we have plenty of bears, obviously. They're ending up in the breaks. They're ending up over by Sheridan, Wyoming. They're really wandering, but what are the odds that, they're going to start wandering up the Gallatin Valley and head north up to Helena, Montana, and make it to Lincoln, Montana, into the Bob Marshall. So what FWP is planning to do in 2024 is they're just going to bring bears down from the Northern Rockies ecosystem and drop them into the Yellowstone ecosystem. And on paper, they're going to be like, okay, here's this genetic diversity that you're squawking about. We did it. And some of the first responses from these guys they're just anti-hunters, but they're pro grizzly bears, is that, well, no, that's too much, just like a zoo. Like, you're treating it like a zoo animal. Like, that's not acceptable either. I mean, it's we are getting bears from up there, but it's not natural. And so ultimately we're not going to make these people happy. This is, and I have a couple of buddies that are like, mark my words, I will bet you $1,000 we will never hunt grizzly bears. We'll never be able to hunt them because it's all politics. And it just boggles my mind that the opposition can squawk science about some issues, but other issues totally disregard the science and form an emotional opinion about something. And that's what sticks. That's what all it takes is a federal judge, a district court judge, to say, no, we're not going to hunt grizzly bears this year. Just a judge can say that. And that boggles my mind. In the United States of America, a judge can strike that gavel and omit science, omit data that proves that we have a problem, a population problem, and the general public, we the people, have nothing to say about it, have nothing that we can do about it. We're stranded, we're hopeless, and we're at the mercy of these activists. And that is some doom and gloom. And we talk about that. I hate being negative too, but it's the reality in the fact of managing grizzly bears. I hope that we can hunt them, and I hope this fast tracks it to be able to basically, and why are we bowing down to these people of being like, oh yeah, we have to have this genetic connectivity, like, but they're doing it. And so kudos to FWP to do this and to try to fast track this so we can be able to manage them, because I do believe that is the first step into growing our deer and elk herds in western Montana is to get a hold, or start to be able to get a hold on the grizzly bears in some of these areas that they're just running rapid in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
anyway.
wolves too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just there in western Montana, like the mountain lions. I saw way more wolf tracks than I saw mountain lion tracks. That's for sure. Like
Yeah.
they're everywhere, and they're able to trap them and able to hunt them. But it's just that heavy timbered country where those wolves just thrive, you know. And so yeah, they've decimated. I mean, hardly see any elk tracks in there. That's for sure. You know, they've just decimated populations and moving on to the next. And it's tough, man. I've watched the hands of the feds like come in and say you can't manage this species or you can't do this, you know. And grizzly bears is such a great example of that. The grizzly bears just wreak havoc on calves and fawns in that early part of the year, you know. And then there's getting to be so many of them that now they're out competing the black bears. Like I could show you my black bear tallies from 20 years ago till today. And man, in the same drainages, and I'm just seeing way more grizzly bears, way less black bears. Like they're gonna, you know, there isn't gonna be any more black bears left. There's not gonna be there. They wreak havoc on the moose populations, and you know, there's not gonna be moose opportunities left. But yeah, it's tough to see something you love so much be controlled politically. And like I've seen it. I come from the Pacific Northwest. In the Pacific Northwest, I love to fish for steelhead. And steelhead are one of those species that are real susceptible. Like, you know, if you put the dams in that flow the rivers, they don't have the spawning grounds, and then it pushes silt to the bottom end. And then, you know, these steelhead, they can't control what the Japanese fleet does out in the ocean. And the Japanese fleet doesn't have any restrictions on catching steelhead. And then also, like, one of the biggest components to it is like, they let there's some treaties that date way back into the day where the tribes can still gill net at the mouth of these rivers where these steelhead return, and they can gill net half the run. So like the Ho is like this historic river, and it sets like the setting is in this coastal rainforest that gets 200 inches of rain a year. Some of the biggest trees, hemlocks and cedars, and just this gorgeous like ferns everywhere on the ground. And then you have like glacial fed rivers that are this teal blue color, and these steelhead run up these rivers. Well, the Ho has a run of 5,000 steelhead a year, and they're able to gill net 2,500 of them at the mouth. But the only thing that Washington's Game and Fish can control is the sportsmen. And so, you know, I'm out there fishing with a single barbless hook, having to return every steelhead that I catch, which is fine. I'm happy to do that. But then they start closing our seasons down because the steelhead runs are down, when it's like, well, you know, they can still gill net the mouse of them. Like, we're not attacking the problem. And I'm not saying that the tribe shouldn't be able to gill net or have a sustainable harvest, but we just have to control these better. It's a bit of like hands off with that. You know, we're just going to control the sportsmen. And so here, this thing that I love so much, I've just had to sit by and watch it go downhill year after year, watch the opportunities go downhill year after year. And now it's like, I have this love for the mule deer and hunting mule deer throughout the West. And the mule deer, you know, it's the same thing where we're hands off a lot of the predator populations, you know, and we're hands off, like we can't touch the grizzly bears, and we're going to shut mountain lion hunting down. And then the habitat is encroached on, you know, with housing and things, and they're losing portions of their winter range where mule deer, you really need good habitat. And so, man, it's like tough to stand by and watch all that you love kind of go away or go downhill. And so, you know, it just brings it to the forefront of my mind that I just need to take the fight to the front lines, continue to be educated, educate, you know, everybody that listens in, make my voice heard, get involved where I can, and fight for what I truly love to do and these species that I truly love. But yeah, man, it's tough to see this hands-off approach to some of these factors that control these major populations. You know, it's just not good management. You either let us manage everything, or like you say, if they had their way and managed nothing and let this natural ecosystem, they're going to run it into the ground, and they spin it like this way, like it's positive, like you said, with the willows. And I know, like, I'll see these articles come out and it's like, oh, Yellowstone, the aspens are coming back because the elk aren't rubbing on them anymore because of the wolves. Isn't this a great thing? It's like, what? The wolves are killing all the elk, so they're not rubbing on the aspen trees, and that's a good thing. That's the ecosystem you want to see. And their model is flawed. It's like, if you don't control these populations of these predators, they'll run these ungulates into the ground, and then pretty soon they'll be starving to death, and there'll be nothing left on the landscape. It'll be barren. Like, that's what they want. Then there's no hunting. Like, they've stopped that, and it's like, man, it's just crazy. And to keep moving the goal line on these wolves, to introduce them into Colorado, and then to watch the same thing happen that we've watched up north happen to Colorado, man, I feel really bad for those sportsmen down there. Like, they're in for it the next 10, 20 years. And once you open that Pandora's box of wolves in your ecosystem, there's no getting it back. It's like Western Montana. They're now able to hunt and able to trap them, but these wolves are slick and travel with these game populations, and now there's so many of them. Like, I can't believe the numbers. Like, all Western Montana is predators. Like, it's all grizzly bears and wolves and mountain lions, and like, I feel bad for any deer, elk that's left in there, and there are still some deer left, and there are enough to sustain those populations here for a while, but it is way out of balance, that's for sure, and that's what they're going to see too.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think, like deer and elk in Western Montana, I don't think they'll go extinct, but they're getting down there where if you don't have fawn and calf recruitment, you have a failing herd, and that's what's happening. And we've talked about this before in the magazine, with management, and what these mature boars, black and grizzly bears, what they do, and they target the calves and the fawns in June, and that's their main food source. And so you have all these bears, these mature boars running around that are unmanaged and just eating calves and fawns left and right. And let's not even factor in wolves and mountain lions and coyotes, not predation levels that they have on calves and fawns. And soon you have a failing herd. But well, I hope what this conversation will do for the listener, and it has for me too, is just, it's fired me up even more to want to get out there and hunt predators, hunt black bears, hunt mountain lions. I see quotas here in Wyoming, mountain lion quotas, that don't even get met, because there's just the houndsmen, that they don't go out there and just kill a bunch of cats and fill the quota, because when they do that, then they can't chase anymore. So they don't really like to kill cats. But somebody like me, like I've hunted cats for a long time and have been a part of it. And I killed my first one last year, which will be a Beyond the Grid coming up here. By the way, we'll get to that in a little bit. But it should light a fire in all of us to get out there and participate in predator management. And while hunting lions with dogs, I'm not the hunter. I'm in a situation like that. I'm nothing. I'm just a trigger man. And you have to be able to look at, and some people will look down on that and like, oh, you're just a killer. That's trophy hunting. And that's what the opposition is calling this, is trophy hunting. And no, absolutely not. That's not what it is. It's management hunting. That's what I'm a part of, is a bigger picture of management. And so, it's not our traditional style of hunting that you and I like to do, Brian, of being out there one-on-one, spot and stalk, matching wits with a big buck or bull. We're letting the dogs do the work, and we're just there to complete the story. That's what I call it. You're completing the story. You're managing a population that needs it. And especially where I was hunting is like primo sheep and mule deer winter area. And that's where these lions are flocking to. And once again, they're killing the young ones. I found a dead yearling mule deer doe on my lion hunt. There's just, it's unbelievable how many deer and sheep that these lions go through in this country. And so it's so important to be a part of this management hunting. That's what it is. I don't consider it trophy hunting. It's not like I have, a stack of mountain lion pelts and I'm getting off on that. That's not what it's about.
Mm-mm.
It's about doing my part. I take from the ecosystem. I harvest an elk or I harvest a deer, and I want to give back, and I want to harvest a lion and take a little bit of pressure off the sheep and the mule deer. I mean, that's ultimately why I do it. And black bears the same thing. That's why I do it. Are they my number one favorite thing to eat? No. There's many better qualities of meat out there than a black bear. Is it edible? Yes. Do I eat it? Yes. It's completely edible, but there's a bigger picture to it than just eating the meat when it comes to managing predators. There's always a bigger picture. And people ask me too, do I eat the mountain lion? Yeah, I eat it. And it's fine. It's good. Some people really like it. I think some people like to make it sound better than it really is, but it's fine. It's good meat, but there's a lot of better meat that's out there. But yeah, I eat my bears, I eat my mountain lions, and I give away as much as I can as well, because I have a freezer full of deer and elk as well. So it's just not my first pick, but
Yep.
it is edible.
Mhm. No, same. I need to do my part. I've got like this hunting skill set, and it's like I need to chase wolves. Like I'm pretty efficient hunter, and I need to, I love to bow hunt and bow hunt all these different species and pretty much exclusively bow hunting. But I need to break out my rifle and go get into tracking down these wolves and doing my part to take a couple off the landscape every year, whatever they allow me to take, and mountain lions and black bears and anything I can do to, like you say, help take pressure off it. And these mountain lions too, they're such efficient hunters and predators and killers, but with all the wolves around, the other thing the wolves are doing is taking a lot of the mountain lion's kills. So the mountain lion will kill something, the wolves will run them off, and now the mountain lion's got to go kill again. And these wolves, they're in such numbers that they're putting more pressure on the mountain lions to continue to harvest these deer. And you're seeing places in that western Montana decimated, not only the elk populations, but the mule deer that I love. Like, we got some of the best genetics in the world up here, out of the Bob, out of the Swan Valley, my best deer in Montana came from the Missions and the Cabinets. And you're watching these places are decimated. Their mule deer populations are gone. Like, you can hardly find them in there. And a lot of the meals for these mountain lions and grizzly bears and wolves now has turned to whitetails, just because whitetails thrive in these different habitats, and there's a lot of whitetails down low, and that's what's sustaining a lot of these animals like diet now, is a lot of these whitetails, because they've killed all the elk and the mule deer out of there, a lot of them. So yeah, I need to do my part, like taking the fight, keeping educated. I need to do my part on the predator landscape, and also putting in my 2 cents as far as management to these different states that maybe don't have the awareness of what's going on in every specific region, and try to put my 2 cents in there. But yeah, I just got to be more involved and fight for what I love to do, and help and try to protect it as much as I can. But yeah, it's boy, we have to call this our doom and gloom podcast, Dan. This is like we get pretty heavy in this one, but I think we both I learn a lot from like listening to you talk on it, and it's like from that I can formulate my own opinions and put them out into this world. And so I do think it's a really important conversation to have, and I think us hunters need to fight for what we love so much and make sure that we're protecting it and not letting it get taken away. And it is this beautiful renewable resource if managed correctly, and if we're able to manage predator populations. So we just need to continue to push for that and protect. And they're doing a lot of good things too. Like a lot of these states are really managing each unit specifically for mule deer, and they're thriving in those places. And like the migration, some of the migration studies that they're doing out of Wyoming, figuring out where these deer's winter range, summer range is, trying to give them places where they can cross the roads, whether that's over bridges or underpasses where these deer can cross, and fencing off. Like they're doing a lot of good things as well. And we have to support these organizations that are doing good things for these species. And hopefully we can protect it for years to come where there's still opportunity. But yeah, there's definitely going to have to be some major change happen, with predator control, and also, with management. These states are going to have to adapt, and in adapting really is the key to thriving. You have to adapt to what we're seeing on the landscape. And a big part of that, like, man, let us hunt these grizzly bears. Those things are getting so thick around, and so anyways, yeah, I'm on the same page as you. Man, so that Beyond the Grid's going to come out. You got a mountain lion hunt on there. Are you running them with which buddy did you go with? And then I bet it made a pretty cool film, huh?
Yeah, it was really fun. And a mountain lion film, in my opinion, is about the dogs and about the chase. Just a cool experience to be a part of. And yeah, just it's fun too. It was on my birthday actually, when I went hunting, and I've spent a fair amount of days over the last couple years, like looking for a good track. Like I'll go out and then I have this network of guys that I can call that have dogs that will come run the track for me. But once again, everybody's a little bit shy to run them in wolf country where there's a lot of wolves. So you got to kind of be selective where you actually hunt for a track too. But yeah, it finally came together. Tyler Jonerson was down. I actually met up with Josh Martolio with Shoshone Lodge Outfitters, just a great outfitter, probably one of the best hunters I know. And he happens to be one of the largest outfitters in Wyoming as well. But passionate about dogs, passionate about hunting lions. And so we all kind of came together. I found that track and we ran it, and it was a beautiful thing. It's art. Running lions with dogs is art, and it's one of those situations where it was fun to just observe and watch these guys do their things with the hounds, and how these hounds are acting. They're watching these hounds move on their GPS, and like, oh, he's treed, or oh, they're lining out now. Oh, I bet they're chasing that cat. They're hot on that cat, because you'll see these little icons on the screen of these dogs sorting out a track, and then just beelines, like taking off, and the rest of the pack of the dogs have yet to catch up. And so it was cool to witness all that. And at the end of the trail, it happened to be a cat that was worthy of being harvested. And so yeah, just an incredible experience with Josh and Tyler and a couple other fellows that were along on that chase. And so yeah, coming up here in the next month, I would say, I think we're going to release it probably about the third week of January, maybe the second week, we'll see. But yeah, another Beyond the Grid coming up, and we're winding down for the season. So it's been a good one. Your goat hunt was awesome, by the way, and enjoyed watching that and being a part of the production, and great work on the videography, by the way. I know you did a little bit of self-filming in there too, but just epic country. It just looked like an incredible experience.
Oh, thanks so much, Dan. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm proud of the product. Yeah, it was a lot of self-filming. Like I had my buddy Adam with me that filmed the stock and a couple shots for me. But yeah, pretty much all self-capture there. So yeah, I was so pumped the way the editing went and the way we were able to put it all together and use a lot of those shots, and then the storyline came together. So yeah, I was really proud how that turned out. And yeah, I think it made a good episode for us, and I think guys are liking it. So yeah, I'm really pumped on it. So yeah, that was really cool. Gosh, we got some great episodes this year, and then me and you hunted hard all season, and I think we got some good episodes coming up next year. So yeah, I can't wait. I just want to continue to improve on my videography and storytelling and which shots. And it's like the longer you do it, the better you get, and also the more comfortable you get talking. And I always like these films when you can include the viewer in on it. Like when you can include your strategy, when you can include your tactics, when you can, and it's tough to do justice through a lens of what the country looks like. And so really working hard to try to capture that habitat and the beauty of it that you're hunting. So I really enjoy it. Yeah, I have some upgrades I want to make to my video gear this year, and then yeah, work really hard to try to bring out the absolute best films we can. But it's just Well, it's due to like the tide rises all ships, and man, you produce such great content, Dan. And so yeah, I just being teamed up with you at Eastman's or whatever, and being able to see some of these films you come out with, drives me to be better and gives me ideas and want to capture more. But it is really fun to see it come out on the screen and take shape, after you put so much work and effort into it.
Heck yeah, no, you're doing a great job, and I even learned some stuff too. That was pretty cool how you guys were gathering water up there,
Mhm.
just getting that. How did that work, like for longevity? Kind of a rabbit trail, but if you haven't seen the episode yet, check it out on Eastman's Hunting Journal's YouTube channel. It's hard to miss. Incredible goat hunt by Barney, I think is the title on there. So be sure to check it out. But what they were doing is they were taking a black garbage bag, black plastic, and then putting snow on it to melt the snow for drinking water. And the idea was that black is going to hold heat. It's going to gather heat and hold it and melt that snow at a little bit faster rate. How did that work
Mhm.
over the course of several days of being up there?
Man, it worked really good. We never dropped down on purpose to get water. We would drop down on a goat stalk, and if we were down there around water, we would definitely grab it. So yeah, the garbage bags worked really good to melt that snow. You just had to get them weighted down, and then you had to be really careful trying to get the water into the bags from there. The other thing that was clutch in there is like having enough water storage. It's like 2 Nalgene's just doesn't cut it. And this is a big part of my muley hunting, is my ability to be able to keep more water than the next guy. If you only have 2 Nalgene's, 64 ounces of water, that'll hardly get you through a day. And so guys hike to the top of the mountain, and especially these mule deer that don't need water every day, and water can be really spotty up there in the high country. And in fact, sometimes I even look for places that don't have much water. But if you can only store 64 ounces, like, you can't stay up on top of the mountain that long, and you've got to go down for water. And once you make that climb down, it's tough to climb back up. And so I've always used like these 3-liter water bladders, and you can get them. They're super lightweight. They fold down to nothing. You can even get insulated models. I have one that I use during hot weather hunting where it actually keeps my water cold, so I don't have to drink warm water. But I can store 3 liters at a time, which is 100 ounces, and I'll bring a couple of them, 200 ounces plus 2 Nalgene's, 260 ounces of water. Well, now I can survive a few days up there. And so I think that's a big part of it. And my buddy Adam, he had bought 5-liter water storages up there. And so I think we had 2 apiece. So we had the ability to be able to store 20 liters of water, which was incredible. So we could just keep melting snow. We could fill those bags as well, which really helped. They're kind of black bags. He didn't have the insulated models. We'd stuff those full of snow. And through that, we didn't have to drop down and lose. I think I said 1,000 feet on the video. It's more like 1,500 or 2,000 feet of elevation down to water. So we didn't have to drop down and lose that elevation every couple days. And it was a game changer. We were just able to keep cruising country and keep hunting goats and put all our focus into the hunting, and then just let those plastic bags do the work for us. So it worked really well.
That's awesome. It makes all the difference. Like you said, mule deer hunting in high country, it's all about water. And your body needs so much more, I feel like, at elevation like that, with all that and that physical endurance. And man, if you don't have a good water source, you're going to be in trouble. I've been there, and now, as like a backup, if I go into a new area, I'll always, if I can make a plan to be close to a lake where I know there's a good water source as like a backup, I'm not going to be screwed. Like, I always keep that in mind. If I'm in the high country and there's going to be a lake nearby, I like that idea, because at least I have a backup if the springs dried up from years past. Because sometimes those springs that I've hit up there, some years they're flowing and some years they're not. It's hit or miss, and so you got to factor that in. But man, if you're putting forth all that effort and dropping down in elevation to get water, if you had to drop down 2,000 feet, that's not sustainable. Your hunt's over. You'll be able to go a few days, but you won't be able to do 5 or 6 days. So so important.
Yeah, it's such a good tidbit, Dan, of the lakes. Like, and this happens on our e-scouting. It's like when you're high country muley hunting, you're running ridge lines and you're up high. And when you're exploring new country, you don't know where you're going to find the water. And if you run out of water, you die or your hunt's over. You got to hike back or whatever the case is. And you just can't pack enough to sustain yourself for a 5-day hunt. And so yeah, the water sources, it gets a bit spooky when you're running ridge lines and don't know where your next water is going to come from. So having a lake marked that you can get to, that you maybe have to lose 500 feet or that you can camp around, man, that's a great tip for guys too. It's like, especially in your e-scouting, is to work out those places that you can get water, and then you can go explore the places that don't have water.
Yep. Exactly.
Cool. Well, okay, hour and 15, a bit ranting on management and on predators here, but I think it's a really important conversation to have. So yeah, man, thanks for joining me. I'm glad you had a good vacation down there in Texas and soaked in a little bit of sun and some rain, it sounds like, but always good to get away with the family. So good job, Dan.
Yep. Good stuff. Yeah. Hopefully listeners on this one can feel our passion, and that's ultimately what I was going to say we're frantic about. We're not frantic about it, but we're passionate about some of these issues because we want this resource for our kids and their kids. And so, yeah, hopefully you don't take it as just a negative podcast, but it's a passionate podcast and something that we both feel strongly about. So yeah, get active, take part in predator management, whether it's black bears, wolves, mountain lions, do your part. And the elk and deer will definitely thank you in that regard.
100%. All right. Sounds good, Dan. I'll check in with you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, buddy.